In this video, we're going to continue with our random idea generation for creating an adventure using the Tome of Adventure Design by Matt Finch. So, let's roll. Hey friends, I'm Brian at Jacoby. Welcome back to the series that I'm putting together dedicated to the Tome of Adventure Design by Matt Finch. This is the third episode in this series, and we're taking a look at Chapter 3, which is dedicated to dungeons. If you haven't seen the previous episodes, I'll link them somewhere here on the screen, link to the playlist. Chapter 3, all about dungeon design. It's a big chapter. I think it comes in at 230 pages, something like that. So let's flippy-do the screen around and take a look. We're going to get into part 1, which covers, again, basic elements of adventure design. Not even specifically the dungeon itself just yet. So in the first 2 chapters, we outlined some locations, purpose of those locations. We outlined some missions. We outlined monsters and some minions, and we have yet to sort of blend those up into a way that they coalesce. But we're going to continue forward because here we start to outline what is our time constraint, or what is it that's sort of keeping this adventure or this mission, one shot, whatever it might be that we're designing, what keeps it moving forward? Why is there a sense of urgency around this thing that we have to do? We're going to take a look at some more motivation. Why are our players why are characters rather, why are they invested in this? Information. So how do the characters and the players gain information about what's going on, about this location that they're about to explore, about the grand scheme of our villain. We talk about the tactical elements. So is there like a certain landscape, or, what is it about this area that's going to be maybe memorable for players to talk about down the road? The monstrous element, we've already outlined some monsters. So they, at a future date, may be the primary monstrous element that comes into play in our dungeon here. Then we talk about creating a map for your dungeon, and something that is not just a linear sort of room A, room B, room C, but how do you create interesting movement throughout this environment? And this chapter also includes some other types of challenges that we could throw into our dungeon design. Up first, our race against time table. So this is a D100 roll, and I'm going to roll a couple of times on this table. So similar to previous chapters, just so we have a couple of options that we can pick from when we're putting the rest of our adventure together. So I'm going to clip out the parts where I'm actually rolling the dice because that gets boring. And our first race against time entry for the location that we're about to create is that the characters will be discovered or identified in a certain period of time, and they have to work quickly to obtain their objectives before this happens. Race against time number 2 is reward. Is predicated on success by a certain time. Race against time number 3, monsters or opponents are going to receive reinforcements as the adventure proceeds. Race against time number 4, living expenses are very high. Boy, aren't they. Maybe rent is due on Wednesday, so if we don't get this done by Tuesday, we're kind of screwed. And race against time number 5 that we've rolled up here is prisoner may be killed by kidnappers. We're either trying to rescue the person that has been kidnapped, or maybe more fun, somebody has kidnapped someone that the party holds dear, and if the party doesn't complete this quest, that person is killed. So there's 5 options for our race against time, and we'll probably pick and choose between a few of these. We may apply some of these to certain missions that we outlined in the first video, but we'll see. We're still just throwing ideas here. We're still at that first stage of just collect a whole bunch of ideas, and then we start piecing things together. Now for the motivational element. Here's where we decide, why are the players, or why are the characters, why are they invested in this? And our first role is the receipt of an additional form of movement. So it could be swimming or breathing water, fly, teleport, things like that. So again, this is interesting because it ties into some of the motivations for the missions that we created earlier that discussed expedited travel may be one of the reasons or one of the rewards that the party receives for completing a quest, or it's the reason that they are embarking on the quest. Motivational element number 2 is treasure, the deeds or documents of ownership over something. It could be a ship, could be a house, could be a castle. Motivational element number 3, money from a patron. So that's easy. Motivation number 4, we get bonuses to saving throws under certain circumstances. And motivational element number 5 is a permit for travel. They have the required documents to pass through a certain area, something like that. Next, we have topographical and tactical challenges. So here we're looking at skill-based challenges, probably, more so than just combat. So here, we're just going to roll a couple of times on this table. The descriptors here are not specific. So these are things that we'll roll these up. There will be 5 sort of actions almost that don't have don't have a fully fleshed out idea behind them. So you'll see as we go through here. So topographical and tactical challenge number 1 is drop into. So it could be that the characters have to drop into a pool, into an underground area. It could be that they have to drop an item into a lake, into a pit, into the volcano of Mount Doom. Option number 2 on our topographical tactical challenges is reach into. Item number 3 is to find something. Number 4 is to detach properly. So maybe there's a special way that a gem has to be taken out of its holding statue or something like that, and the characters have to do that. So that's going to require skills more so than just swinging an axe at it. And our last topographical tactical challenge is climb down to. These little definitions are intended to spark some creativity. They're not intended to create a fully formed picture of what the challenge should be, but it's to give the game master or the person who's creating this adventure something to kind of think about. These should start to give people a picture of the party going into an adventure location, and now they have to drop into or climb down to. You kind of start to get your mind cranking up here and thinking about, what are they dropping into, or what are they climbing down to? How are they doing it? Do they have a rope? Do they have to scale a surface? Do they have to levitate? And so many different options that we can use to start fleshing this out as we move through the rest of this randomly generated content. Next, we have specific tactical situations. So how does the party gain some sort of advantage over the challenge, whether it's combative or a skill challenge? So we'll roll up 5 times on this. So item number 1 is an area where life support is required, underwater or in an airless environment, for example. How can our party use this to their advantage? Of course, this will be fleshed out later, but some ideas here. If we're underwater or in some airless environment, as the example gives, perhaps the players, the party, have the means by which to survive in that area. Can they make it so that their enemies, any enemy combatants who show up, can they make it so those enemies are at a disadvantage if they cannot breathe or otherwise survive in that environment? Item 2 in our tactical situations is that they're in an area where things of tactical value appear or disappear. Item number 3 on our tactical situations is a major hazard at a particular point surrounded by an area of high risk provides significant shortcut to movement or to a tactically beneficial location. So to gain the high ground, the quickest way there is to pass through some area that creates difficult terrain or hazardous terrain of some sort. Item 4 on our tactical situations is an area that contains a victory point or a position that when you arrive there, you essentially win by escaping or ending whatever the situation is that's being created. And the last on our items for tactical situations, number 5, situations where explosives can be set off. Rooms with scattered barrels of flammable oil, stuff like that, and creating a chain reaction for those explosions to happen can be a fair bit of fun. So that's our 5 tactical situations. Let's keep moving. The next brief session talks about the monstrous element, and we've already designed some monsters in chapter 2, so I'm gonna skip past this a little bit. Basically it just talks about varying your encounters, making sure that you keep things kind of spicy. Don't let it just be, oh, another room with 6 skeletons, another room with 6 skeletons, another room 4 skeletons. Make sure that the encounters kind of remain interesting. It's okay to have skeletons peppered throughout your dungeon, but there should be some other stuff in there as well. Next, we have some tips on map design. You could probably read it on screen a little bit here, or better idea, go buy the Tome of Adventure Design. The link to purchase it on DriveThruRPG is in the description box below. This is a fantastic resource. I highly recommend it. Go check it out. Tips on map design. Making sure that you don't just end up with a boring run-of-the-mill map that takes characters through a very linear dungeon. Our next table is creating challenges to the character sheet. So in the description here, it talks about this is just a way to kind of throw a little bit of spice into your game. Most of the challenges that you throw at your players should be to challenge their intelligence and creativity to come up with a solution to a problem, not necessarily just attacking the numbers that exist on their character sheet. But occasionally, peppering something like that in could make things interesting and fun. I'm going to roll twice on this table just to kind of come up with some ideas for maybe something that I throw into my dungeon. I may or may not use it. We'll see. And the 2 items that I rolled up on the challenges to the character sheet, the first one is an ability check. So something that would require a strength, dexterity, or constitution check are the 3 that this book notes are probably the most appropriate, but it could be any number of the attributes that show up on the sheet. Maybe there's an effect within a region of this location that acts like a lodestone. So characters have to roll a strength check, or maybe after a couple of rounds they have to roll a constitution check so that they don't start becoming fatigued. And the second option that I came up with on this random table is a random selection. So as it's noted here in the text, something that's kind of fun is figuring out if the party is going to play this random selection game, and who, like which specific person in the party is going to play it, and then having either a die roll or pick a card or choose what's behind door number 1, 2, or 3, something like that, that creates some additional flavor in the storytelling. And now we get into part 2, which is actually starting to design the dungeon itself. Design the dungeon location, the adventure that takes the party into the dungeon. So the first part of this chapter is talking about the differences between layers and mega dungeons. Mega dungeons being like Undermountain or the Emerald Spire on Golarion, places where it's just like this one giant dungeon that your party could explore for many, many sessions. Layers are smaller dungeons where it's a small location, small purposeful location. Maybe it's the dwelling of some monster or series of monsters, something like that. So it's a little bit more confined. Like it's a little bit more specific about sort of what is the purpose of this thing. All right, so we're going to start out with the underlying truth, the backstory. So here's a big picture backstory for our location that we're about to create. So we're going to start out with why did this adventure location become a dangerous place? So there are three different columns in this table. Again, D100 rolls on each to find out why the location became dangerous. Factor number one. Factor number two of why it became dangerous. And then, is there a specific time frame? Like, when did this location become dangerous? Has it always been that way? Was it 5 years ago? 1,000 years ago? Let's find out. So I'll create 5 different backstories for why this place became dangerous. So after rolling 3 times on this table, I came up with item number 1. Poisons were used after contact with sinister beings 1 year ago. So that plays into one of the monsters that we created in episode 2 was a poison elemental. So this poison elemental could be the big monster that the party has to interact with during the course of exploring this location. My next series of rolls has us with the option of construction, recent or ancient, was done in connection with magical research 100 years ago. This seems to play in well with the mission that we created in episode 1 of a mage who is trying to get us to sabotage an archaeological dig. Option number 3 on our dangerous location, the place was shut off from the world in connection with a dispute between powerful monsters or individuals 10 years ago. So that's not immediately popping to mind, connection with some of the missions or locations that we've rolled up previously. But that's the fun of this, is like now we have a couple of different options to choose from that I would not have thought of off the top of my head probably. All right, random idea generation number 4 has us with the inhabitants broke into 2 groups in connection with a strange belief 1 year ago. And now we have item number 5 on our list, which is that inhabitants were changed in connection with promises made by a powerful being 1 month ago. And this kind of connects back to one of the, I think, motivations or one of the villainous plots was related to demonic gifts that the bad guy is sort of promising or dishing out. Now we move on to capsule backstories. So capsule backstories are sort of limited to a certain area within the adventure, or a certain zone within the adventure, or a certain time frame of the adventure. So there are 2 different tables that are presented in this book, one of them for item-based backstories and one for person-based backstories. I'm going to roll up, let's just go with 4 on each of these tables, and we'll see what we come up with. Item number 1 on our table is a fun one. So there's a clue that disappeared mysteriously, and this clue had outlasted or had been preserved longer than expected, and the clue disappeared 10 years ago. Item number 2 on our capsule backstories for items, there was a message or letter delivered a year ago. It arrived mysteriously, and it perhaps identifies somebody who has been posing as someone else. So it's revealing somebody who has a false identity, or perhaps it was delivered by a person with a false identity. Item number 3 for this table, we have a mysterious sealed container, which caused a tragic course of events, and something about a family identity. So maybe there's a mysterious sealed container with the seal of a noble family that caused a tragic course of events. What was in this sealed container? We don't know yet. This happened 100 years ago. Item number 4 on our item-based list, a monster was once or is now needed to complete an important project here. All right, now we're going to move into person-based capsule backstories, and similarly, I'll come up with 4 of these rolling across this table. All right, item number 1 on our person-based capsule backstory, a noble or a leader was using this location as a place of training, and a surprising document or other message arrived here. The event was cunningly orchestrated by a third party 100 years ago. If we hop back up to, where was it? Mysterious sealed container, item number 3 from our item-based backstory. Those kind of tie together. So maybe they're both associated with one of the reasons that this location has become dangerous. Now, the third person-based capsule backstory, we have a secret murderer or assassin who is using our location to maybe hide evidence or a secret or something like that. The last important event that happened in this location, there was some gambling, and if we use it, an optional factor that we could throw in is whatever the event is that caused this problem. The event was intended by someone to establish the person's power. Option number 3 on our capsule backstory, we have a magic user, a well-known magic user, who was using our location as a hideout. And the last important event that happened here was that it was used for gladiatorial contests. An optional factor in this location could be a Hobson's choice, so neither result is desirable, and the magic user was maybe using this location as a hideout 10 years ago. And our fourth and final person-based capsule backstory, we have someone who interprets laws of some kind, possibly a secret law, is using this place, and this is where their identity or appearance was changed or changes. The last important event that happened in this location was the fuel for some event. And an optional factor that we can throw in here is an accident of timing. And then these events happened 1 year ago. So that's 4 person-based capsule backstories. Some of these could be used in conjunction with the item-based backstories, or maybe even with the missions that we set out earlier. Or these could be, again, unique things or unique seeds for certain areas within the location that we're about to create. So we haven't even gotten to the actual mapping of the dungeon yet. This is all sort of starting to pre-fill some purpose for the location that we're about to create. Up next, we have a table that will help us determine what was the original purpose of a location, what is its current use, and who or what converted it into its current use. So our first combination of original purpose, converted by, and current purpose selection is an art gallery, display area, waxwork, or trophy room that has been converted by a wizard into a garden with fungus, orchids, or other plant materials. Our second series of items here, we have an oracle or divination converted by an intelligent vermin into an antechamber. Maybe you have this place that was meant for divination, and maybe the vermin have burrowed through the wall. There's a nesting place behind that wall where they've burrowed, or something like that. So this series we have training rooms converted by a demonic creature, possibly with minions of subtype, and I've rolled again on the table, so we'll fill that in a second. But these training rooms have now been converted into courtrooms. So maybe the training grounds, it's been converted into a courtroom, and the way that disputes are settled are basically via combat. So I rolled again on the table to see what kind of minions are working with this demonic creature, and I came up with a wizard or other spell caster who is evil. And we'll paste it in here. All right, number 4, we've got a workroom for a wizard or other magic-using being that's been converted by a non-evil wizard or spellcaster into a study. And number 5 on our list that we've come up with, we have closets, lockers, or small storage that's been converted by a collector of objects or animals into stables. Now we move into a section that's all about generating information that gets distributed to your players through clues, rumors, or written information. These pieces of information can be scattered throughout your adventure. It's not limited to a dungeon setting. In fact, it should be scattered throughout your adventure, and it should pertain to both long-term meta plots as well as short-term sort of immediate adventure plots. So we're going to roll up a bunch of stuff on here, and then as we put our adventure together later, we'll draw on these ideas to scatter our information throughout the adventure. Our first table is for types of clues. We're going to roll up 5 different set of clues that the player characters are going to be able to find. And for most of these, there are subtables that we'll roll on, so that will give more detail to the individual clues that we're coming up with. So our first clue is something that is an inherent part of the general decoration, architecture, environment, or atmosphere. For this clue, there's no subtable. This is basically just baking into the decorations of an area some clues. So it could be a statue that's pointing a certain way. It could be something about the floor plan in a room that helps to indicate how to find the next clue. So think about this scene from Indiana Jones where there are holes in the floor, and he determines that if you use a staff of a certain height with an amulet on top, it points to the direction or it points to the location of the Ark of the Covenant. Clue number 2, we have the remnants of an event. We'll roll on the subtable and see what we come up with. All right, so we end up with the remnants of a battle. The combatants, maybe some dead bodies, broken weapons, things like that, bloodstains, or maybe the evidence of spell casting. So think about what kind of evidence would spells leave in their wake, especially if you have area of effect spells like Fireball, obviously. There's going to be a whole lot of burnt material around in a certain confined space or radius, right? Are there sort of patterns left on the walls or the desk or something that might indicate there was some sort of electrical arc that passed through the room? Clue number 3 is a direct vision or memory imparted to someone. So let's take a look and see what our subtable tells us about that clue. All right, so on our table here, our subtable, we end up with the information that's being passed along is the location of a treasure. And the way that the party receives this information is the entire party has a sudden vision perceived as if they are characters in the events shown. Each sees the events from the perspective of different people in the vision. As I'm rolling this up and putting it together, one of the things that pops to my mind is that this shouldn't just be a sudden event. Perhaps there is a creature or a spellcaster who is sort of imparting this information on the party. And so whoever is sort of causing this vision to happen is intending for the party to find that treasure. But, for some reason, whatever that spellcaster or whatever is, can't do it themselves. Maybe it's part of a haunt. Maybe it's an incorporeal creature, something like that. Or maybe they are cursed to not be able to retrieve this item for some reason. Clue number 4 is a journal, diary, or other personal records. And this is something that I have a bad habit of using when I create adventures and just need to quickly give information to my player characters. It's a bad habit. It's one that I've been trying to break. And so when I see this come up, I sort of get a little bit nervous that this is too similar to what I do and have done in the past. But let's roll on the subtables and see what we come up with. All right, so the subtables for our journals, diaries, or other personal records, we have the nature of the writing, the letter contents, and possibility of ownership papers. So what we've come up with is the nature of the written clue are notes to self. So little scribblings, diary kind of thing. The contents of those writings are response to a status report or demand. So perhaps the minions of whoever wrote this have said, here's where we're at. We're behind schedule, something like that. And so this is, starting to respond to that status update. Or maybe whoever wrote this, their boss, is kicking down a demand. Like, hey, you need to make sure you need to step up this thing. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to, call forth our elder god in the appropriate time. And then, as part of this document package, perhaps we include the exclusive rights to minerals taken from a particular area, or the right to mine in a certain area. Clue number 5 is a deliberately placed message left behind for some recipient. So let's roll up and see who it is that's receiving this message and what the message is. And so what we've come up with is that we have a letter written to a religious leader from someone who is believed to be dead. And the information that's contained in this letter is information about a monster and how to avoid it. All right, our next table in this chapter is about generating magical symbols. So because we do have a couple of threads that involve magical nature of some sort, I'm going to roll up a couple times just to see what we come up with for magical symbols. This is kind of fun because now we can create a handout and say, hey, you find this symbol, frequently occurring within the motif of the statues in this location. And when they find a spell book or some document or something like that, they may see this sigil, and so that kind of starts tying things together a little bit. And instead of just a Harry Potter style lightning bolt, maybe we come up with something interesting that isn't already being used. So I'll roll up 5 different combinations of the basic form of the symbol, how to change it, and then sort of a next step to kind of make it unique. So our first roll is that we have a shape, and then we roll a d6 to determine is it going to be an eye, a hand, diamond, square, circle, or triangle. So I'll roll that up real quick, and we have a triangle. So now I'm going to roll again and see how do we change it. And the way we're going to change it is by turning it on its side counterclockwise. For a triangle, maybe that just means instead of the base being at the bottom, maybe the base is on the, let me think about which way is counterclockwise. The base, we have a vertical line with the triangle pointing to the left. And our final step is to put a dot next to it to the left or to the right. So maybe it's sort of a left-facing triangle with a dot on the right or on the left. So I'll have to create the graphics for this at some point. Today, we're just getting the ideas listed out in a document so that we can go back and start filling in the blanks later. Magical symbol number 2, we have a letter of the alphabet. We roll 1d6 to determine is it going to be G through L. All right, so the change we're going to make to it is to create a mirror image, connect 2 random points in the basic form with a straight line. So we have a J, and another J, and then we connect a straight line across in some way. And our final roll for modifications, no modification. So J with a mirror image of the J and a straight line connecting 2 points of those 2 letters. Magical symbol number 3, again, we have a shape, either an eye, hand, diamond, square, circle, or triangle. So I'm going to roll the results for that. We have a circle that we're starting out with, and then the first modification is to put a second basic form below it, touching, but upside down. And our final modification, so we start out with kind of an infinity symbol, and then we add another smaller circle to the top, bottom, or to the side of this figure. Magical symbol number 4, we take a letter of the alphabet, we got letter M, we're going to create an identical figure, put it right next to it, touching, and then for our final modification, put a dot next to it to the left or to the right. Magical symbol number 5, we have the capital letter V, with a squiggly tail on one corner or edge at the top, pointing left or right. Then start from one of the figure's points or ends and draw a spiraling line starting from that point. So that could be pretty interesting. Again, these are things that make more sense to create like a handout or some sort of graphical representation of a thing to hand out to your players. So we'll be working on that in a later section when we start talking about handouts, things like that we'll be distributing with this adventure. The rest of this portion of Chapter 3. We have some notes about codes and ciphers, some sample alternate alphabets, and easy codes that you could create for your player characters. One of the things that, as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking it might be fun to maybe take where we have the magical symbols, instead of using the English language letter J, we take a look at one of the either Greek alphabet or for Elder Verthark, something like that, and use that as the basis of our magical symbol instead of just using the letter J. So that might be kind of a fun way to look at this also, and you can create some additional variants of your magical symbols. If I take even just one of these and then use Elder Verthark, Greek, and Phoenician, basically I could come up with five different, if I use the English letter J or V as well, 5 different variations of the same magical symbol, and maybe that fulfills all of the magical symbols that I'll need throughout this adventure. Then we talk about generating riddles, things like that. So generating riddles, it's kind of hard to use a random generation table for that, so that's something that you just have to kind of work on. The next section of the chapter is all about generating the dungeon map. That will be in a follow-up video, so keep your eyes tuned to the Jigabee channel. There will be a link in the description box down below where you can pick up the Tome of Adventure Design on Drive-Thru RPG. If you've been tuned in for these videos, you can see that this is a really great resource for just generating some inspiration for portions of your game. You don't have to use every chapter the way that I'm displaying it here. Basically, what I'm trying to do is just create a giant document with a bunch of ideas to kind of pick from, arrange some of these ideas that on first viewing, maybe they don't it's not clear how they connect to each other. But with all of these things, my hope is the next series is taking all of this information and putting together an adventure, spelling things out, putting some stat blocks in, making maps, making visual handouts, things like that. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. And until next time, roll well, my friends.